So, hi, here's Florian with a new podcast guest. So, I would say introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Tobi, and I'm father of three little girls, and I'm with my team in charge for the cultural transformation at the Otto Group called Kulturwandel 4.0, and I'm very happy to be here today.
Awesome. So, can you explain us on the beginning what does a culture change mean? What is this?
Actually, it's like, at least for us, I can only talk for the Otto Group, but for us, it's like trying to establish kind of a mindset which allows us to to be as responsible as possible to every new challenges thrown to us by the digitalization. So I would call it.
Okay, so first, for people which don't know the Otto Group is probably the biggest e-commerce corporation in Germany, I would describe it. How you would describe the Otto Group?
Actually, it is actually even bigger. It's the second largest fashion and retail e-commerce player in the world, to be honest. So we have more than 54,000 employees, more than 40 billion in revenues. We have like more than 100 companies, which are grouped in like 30 different sub groups, so to say. But in the end, it's one of the biggest player in the market.
So, and then explain to us, like, how did you got your job? Like, how did you start to say, okay, we need to have a change here in this huge corporation?
Actually, it just happened, so to say. So I just hit the job by chance, I would call it. So it's not like a planned thing, or not like something I was ever looking for. So to be honest, by heart, I'm more like a strategic consultant, and I always worked in this field of in-house consulting. And in 2015, we had simply a very bad year in the company. And it was the first year we made a big loss, close to 200 million. And in these times, the board members asked me to check why are we losing so much money and what we can do not to lose that much money in the future. And we simply run this kind of strategic project and came up with some, I would call ideas, so to say, but some hints that it's not only about how our company is structured and how our IT infrastructure is set up and so on, but also that we are not having the right mindset to face with new challenges. And this is like the beginning of the Kulturwandel 4.0. So we try to figure out what kind of things hindering us as a company to get better. Because if you look at the market, most of our competitors are trying to create some kind of ecosystem which already exists in the Otto Group. Most companies try to establish some kind of services around financing, some services around logistics and so on and so on. But all these assets are already in the Otto Group. And so we ask ourselves, what do we need to unleash the beast, so to say? What do we need to make it better? And we narrowed it down to also to narrow it down to issues and cultures. And this is what we are trying to tackle now.
I imagine right now I would be in your shoes and I would get the job to check where's the problem. I would sitting in front of these numbers and like the thing. And how did you got the idea that, like, it's more a mindset problem than optimizing processes, updating the technology, educating the employees? How did you got this idea?
Actually, it's due to the crisis, I would call it, because in 2015 we made all these things. We made new strategies. We empowered or tried to educate and empower our employees and so on and so on. But it did not work out. So in the end, it was not enough. And if you look from a strategic perspective at the Otto Group in 2015, we really tried everything to bring the group to the next level. And if you kind of fail, even though it's not a real failure, because some things are like in the long run worked out fine, but in the just if you look at the second, we made this big loss. We felt we have to go new ways, and so we at least tried something. So. And in the end, it became very big. We didn't. It wasn't the intention that it became that big, and so it's not like that it's all about culture, but it's also about culture. So it's very simple, if you have a best team, but you have a bad idea, you might not make it in the market. And it's also the other way around. If you like having the best idea, but simply idiots, the idea will also not make it in the market. And this is what we figured out. You need both. And both means also to talk about what people need to get better, to perform better. And the interesting piece is that mainly, and most people know, if you ask them, what do you need from me as a boss or from me as a company, to increase your performance in terms of like on the cultural level, not in terms of like, I don't know, needing a new laptop or so on, but what is hindering you in terms of like patterns, behaviors, and so on and so on. Most people are very, very sharp and very precise and can very easy tell you what they need, but it's very hard to get this hurdles out of the way, because it's always about people, it's always about relationships, and it's always about structures and processes. So it's a big effort, and you also have to be brave and encouraged to try to tackle these kind of issues. But what we see is like, if you do so, you can really unleash the beast.
So if you are like, if you ask, or you did ask probably your employees, they probably told you, I want to have trust that I can try the things which I think are right, probably, correct?
Yeah, for sure. Trust is an issue, or was an issue.
And so you probably did surveys then for the beginning to check where's the problem, or did you already guess that's the issue? Or what was the first thing you started to do after you said, okay, we need a culture change?
The first thing we did was like talking to people, but not kind of a real survey, but just randomly ask people. And we by mistake made a good approach, because we asked nearly everybody, from the internship to board members, and from people who are working in Hamburg, but also talk to people who are abroad, people who just entered the company, people who just left the company, or stayed very long. So to be honest, just by chance, we had kind of an holistic view on the issues, and we came up with, as I'm a strategic by heart, came up with some thesis or hypothesis, and then we had simply the idea to test if they are true or not. And this is how we worked. So it was not like the structured run worldwide survey thing, but rather by rather listening to for sure lots of people, but in the end trying to test some ideas. And this was our main issue. And if you say, or what you say, just like trust was one issue, like we need to increase the level of trust, but it's this is very, very easy to explain, because trust might mean for you something very different in comparison to me. And so we really have to figure out, what does trust mean, and what does trust mean in your personal day work. It could be also that both of us agree that what trust is, but due to your way of working, or due to my task, it might be very different how to feel that someone is trusting us. And so this is what really try to bring it very down to your everyday work, and to check how do you feel in the second, and what do you need from me as a boss, that you feel that someone is trusting you. And this is why the process is taking so long, and why it's not a project. Kulturwandel is not a project which is done some at some point of time, but it's like an ongoing process which is open, which needs to be include all the people, all the persons, and has to be run, I guess, forever.
Yeah. So you started with main hypotheses, which are the problems and should be solved. Next to trust, what were the main hypotheses you came up with? You said you want to test.
Yeah, we came up with 6 in the beginning, and let me check if I remember, because it's like 5 years, 5 years ago. So first was empowerment, how to empower people, break down the silos, so become more collaborative and be more co-creative. We came up with speed, for sure, like increase the speed. We came up with steering, so how to steer in the e-commerce times, because our heritage is like more catalog based or paper based, and so you have some issues in terms of like steering. We also had the issue, let me check, trust. I always forget one. I have no idea which the last one was.
Maybe it comes back.
Yeah.
So, but like, if you would come to me and say, "Hey, I have 6 issues. Please do all at the same time," I would say, "No. Focus means only one thing." So, how did you prioritize them? How did you go in the next steps?
First of all, the main idea was, and also board asked me the same questions like you did, because they are used to this kind of strategic approaches. But when talking culture, it's always about relationships. And so the first thing we say is like, first of all, we need to check if it's simply a view of maybe a lot of people. For example, like we need to empower more our employees. But in the end, you as a board member have to really discover and check if it's really the truth. So what we did first was not like trying to prioritize or trying to creating some kind of roadmap, but rather to get the board members in contact with all the employees and let them tell their stories and let them share their views and let them really check what are the issues, And this is what we created. We created kind of a safe space, I would call, so that lots of people which would never ever have the chance to meet some of the board members because we are so big, not because they are not approachable, but simply by the size, and to give them room and space to talk about what they experienced in the group. Because in the end, don't forget, the Otto Group is the Otto Group because the board members made them the Otto Group like it is, and some board members simply had not the chance to really oversee some kind of decisions might affect some guy, I don't know, in the US doing his work in a different way, And by giving them the chance to really talk, first of all, they had got this deep understanding about what the problem is, because most often, this is my experience, not also from the Otto Group, but talking to I don't know, hundreds of persons who are not part of the Otto Group. Most often, as like executives, managers, MDs, however you call them, SVPs, always think they know what is needed, also on the cultural level, to make people work better. And so they come up and saying, you are too slow, you have to work faster. And then the people are annoyed because they say they don't get it, and the bosses are annoyed because they also say they don't get it because I told them to work fast, but they're not doing, And what we figured out is that you first of all need really to understand what the problem is. And actually, because I'm socialized in kind of a strategic work, this is what you do in every kind of strategic project. I'm not going to you as if you would be my boss and I would say, hey boss, I guess we need to build a new warehouse. You would say, why? I need a business plan, blah 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 blah. But nobody's talking these kind of issues in the field of culture. I don't know why, but it's what I experienced so far. And so the next step would be, if you really see the problem, you might think about what kind of patterns, or behavior patterns, or what kind of values do you want to live up for? And this is what most companies are not doing. Because what you just said, you said trust is one common word. Everybody's talking about trust, but nobody knows what it means in your local everyday work. And so this is what we did at the next phase. We said, okay, so if we want really to have really think about people in a good way, or we think we have to trust each other and so on and so on, we have to break it down to your real life situation. And this is also needs a lot of talking. You need to negotiate. Why do I have to control this, or why can I trust you here? And it's not easy, but in the end, this is what makes the difference. Because even in our company, with more than 70 years of company history, we made all these kind of change programs, change initiatives, and so on and so on. Normally, the board members go to a nice place, I don't know, beach, hotel, whatsoever. They most often they also invite some normal employees, but the ones they trust, the ones who are very loyal, the ones who are not very, I don't know, not that pushy, I would call. And normally they go there with, I don't know, 1 or 2 consultants, external ones who guide some process. And then Monday they go on stage, rise up poster saying trust, passion, performance, whatsoever. And they mean all the people who are in front of them, but they never talk about themselves. And this is also what changed in the Otto Group, at least, because the board members said, you are like you are because we wanted you to be like you are. So if we want to change something, we have to change first. And so they started to change their own behavior and invited everybody to join. it was very openly in the Otto Group. You could see all the stuff on the blogs and could see where they fight it. Here they had some kind of discussions. Here they have a question, and so it was very open. And so we tried to establish, so to say, a kind of different atmosphere. And in the end, it worked out very well. Without it is, if you look at the stuff from today, it always looks like with this big master plan, and everything was so kind of, some genius must have sitting somewhere and created some kind of process. But in the end, it was lots of luck. It was lots of failure. You only see the 10% which survived, so to say, and it was also really, really often simply things just happened by chance because someone met someone. So.
Yeah. So, by the way, Tobias, if you have a master plan, you can tell it now. It's completely fine.
But if I would have, I would go out and sell it, I guess. But.
Sell it. I think you could still write a book. It will be still interesting. So, you said you need to convince the board members from the problem. And how did you do it? Did you say, okay, you want to have that they work faster? Check first how fast you work yourself, or?
It's not working because I tell you why. Because all the board members around the globe are mainly very smart people.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would not be in the board. So you cannot convince people by talking to the head, so to say. You have to talk to the heart. Everybody knows it's not good to have silos, and you can talk to anybody in this world and ask them if it's a good idea to break down the silos. Everybody would say yes, it's perfect, and everybody would say I would do my best, and then the but is the interesting part. But my colleagues don't want, my employees don't want, blah 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 blah. So it's not an issue about talking to the rational part of a person. You have to touch the heart. And as I'm a strategic guy, it sounds weird, even for me now when talking about this. But we had to really let them feel that decisions they made create an atmosphere which was not the best atmosphere for bringing up the best performance of a team. And this is what we did. So it was more like. We confronted them with lots of situations with people saying we have fear, or people who said, I don't know, you decided this and this, it means for me that, and by this, I think we would rather go deep to the hearts of them than to the brains, because by brain-wise, even in our group, everybody knows that it's a good idea to trust each other, that you have to work more collaborative and so on. It's not working. You have to go to the feelings of people. And we had also one thing by chance, our board members at this time always had been good-hearted persons. Otherwise, it's not working. If you have persons who are really don't give a shit about the world, you're not able to reach to their hearts.
But it doesn't work.
People, you're able to talk with, and with everybody of our board members. Even 5 years ago, it would be one best thing which might have happened in my life to talk 10 hours with them about their life, because they're so interesting persons, and so warm-hearted. But it just happened by chance, or because Michael and Benjamin Otto choose the right persons, maybe.
How did you forwarded what you learned directly to them, that they reached their heart? So did you record the interviews? Did you arrange meetings? And then how did you make sure that the people, the lower people, could be honest to them, because it's the highest boss of your whole company? How did you make sure?
Yeah. This is actually was one of the main challenges at the beginning. This is why we created this kind of safe space. And for sure, we had some briefing to board members, and we had some briefing to different other persons, also the attendees of these kind of workshops. But we are such a big company, and if you make a shout out to 50,000 persons, you will always find the 10 brave ones who are have nothing to lose. Might be too big, but who are willing to bring up the shit to the table, so to say. And so it was not an issue, but the issue was how do people react? What might your boss say if you would go to the CEO and tell them that your boss is not such a good idea at the position, you know? And so we need to create these kind of mechanism, I would call it. And the board members have been very, very thankful. And this is also what I experienced, also not also in the Otto Group, but also around all the companies we are talking to who are not part of the Otto Group also, because leaders often really don't know what the issues are. And because they don't know, they don't have the chance to tackle them or to act on them. So it's also kind of responsibility of the employees to let them know. Otherwise, you know, they have not have the chance to do anything. And I compare always the company with every other relation you have. Think about if you have a wife or your man, your kids, your best friends. You know, only by having one good night with someone in a club, he will never become your best friend forever. Best friendship means you establish some kind of relationship. Partnership means you're going to establish some kind of relationship, and you have to work on these kind of relationships so that they last. But it also means that everybody's bringing up the shit to the table and saying, you know, I don't like this or I don't know like that. And this is also why should it be different in a company? Also in companies, you have to talk about these issues because it's always about people, you know.
But I imagine right now you make the white out call and say, okay, I want to know what your problems are, and then 5 people coming up and say this and this problem, and then you turn out relationship problems with their boss and so on. So how did you manage that things that they worked out fine, so that they understand, like if we stick in a relationship perspective, they understand the value of the relationship and go through it? If you have it in a big, huge company, maybe 100 times like 100 problems at the same time from 100 people from different countries, if it's getting worse.
First of all, I think there are different mechanisms, so to say. First thing is like you cannot simply start and let people complain about each other and then do nothing. So you have to go on. You know, first of all, there must be room that everybody's complaining, but then you really have to really enforce everybody to find a solution. So you have to go the next step. And the second thing is people need to experience that results, business relevant results are getting better by having better relationships established. And this can only be done by doing so. So we I don't know, made a couple of kind of projects, initiatives, but the whole setup was kind of new, at least for us, new in terms of like people ask, how do we want to behave in this kind of project? We made all this kind of cross-functional and cross-hierarchical mixtures, which were also new to us, at least in some areas of the business, and we came up with better results. And so in the end, and this is where nobody should be like be blind. So in the end, it always matters also for us, always everything which is the relevant KPIs in the end, if you're creating some value add, you know, either to the customer or to the project or so on and so on. We are not doing Kulturwandel for I don't know, riding unicorns and hugging trees. And I would be that sharp to say we not even do it, but employees feeling better. They don't have to feel better. It's happening that they are feeling better because they have more room, they have more autonomy, they can decide more stuff and so on and so on. But we do Kulturwandel to overcome all the challenges thrown to us by digitalization. It's our answer to survive in a world which will be totally flipped upside down in the next couple of years.
So, and also the next challenge is that it doesn't help if you solve the problems and you teach the whole thing, because then 10,000 people writing you and say, I have a problem. So how do you turn this whole concept into a framework which you can be sure that like it works without you?
Yeah, this is actually the main issue from the beginning, because I don't even think that I'm an expert, to be honest, because I think the experts are the ones who are solving the problems in the teams. Because if you narrow it down, it's not even about culture in a company, it's about culture between 2 or 3 people who are running a project or being stuck together in kind of in a department. So the smallest social entity in a company is a team. And so the teams have to negotiate and figure out how these things are doing. And so our job would be to do 2 things. First of all, enable people to make these kind of talks. This is what we do. So we created some kind of You can see I'm a strategic guy by heart. Some kind of frameworks which are very even kind of broad, I would call, but allow enough customization so that everybody is able to use it. And the second thing is to make increased networks so people are able to exchange their ideas, views, and experiences. And so this is actually what we did in kind of structure. First of all, set up some kind of toolkit, I would say, so people are able to do so. But toolkits are also dangerous because people are trained like you have a problem, you use a tool, and then the problem is solved, which is not working, at least my experience in the cultural field, because you always have to dig deeper and figure out what really is the problem, what I discovered, what I just explained a couple of minutes ago. And the second thing is like let people talk to each other in terms of like sharing their ideas. And we created some very huge network within the Otto Group, either along your profession. So if you like a coding guy and I don't know, using Python or whatsoever, we try to create a community of all the Python guys so they can change their ideas. But it could be also like your personal role, like being a father or being a mom. So we created also these kind of communities, and we also make open up the whole Otto Group for external exchanges. So we are talking to roughly 300 companies which are not part of the Otto Group about transformational challenges and issues, and they are also like part of our network. And so we bring the people who are running the transformational process in the Otto Group with people who run this in different branches and different companies, and so on and so on. And because in the end, what I experienced so far is like everybody is challenging nearly the same issues because the world is changing for all of us. Even your local context, your local profession might be different, and so you can really learn on this kind of meta level in terms of like how to run stuff, how to overcome certain issues, and so on and so on and so on. At least for us, it's very valuable to talk to all these other companies and branches and industries.
Yeah, makes sense. So first question, which tool you use to build up the network? Slack or something similar, or?
Yeah, we have actually in the company, we use Office 365.
Okay.
Office 365.
Yeah.
And we have hundreds of to be honest, I guess there are hundreds of different tools, but the main tool is like the Office suite, which is run in nearly every company by now. And so it's like also gave us the chance to now easily get access to people who are not running or who are running a business in some other countries and so on. So this is like our tool, but the tool is not the issue, you know. It's also about the mindset in terms of like, just think 10 years ago to the Otto Group. 10 years ago in the Otto Group, if I even if I would know whom I might call because he might help me to solve a problem, I would not have done it before I would have asked my boss, and the boss might have asked the other boss, so that we are able to speak. And so this is what changed, you know. It's not about the tool, it's that I'm now able to approach everybody, and the one I'm approaching is also answering, which would be also not the case maybe 10 years ago. It might be at least it gave a probable chance that people are only responding if I'm the boss on my own, or if I'm calling from the headquarters, and so on and so on. So the mechanism is a difference, and so the new IT infrastructure speeded up lots of things and make things easier. But also here, it's not only about the tool; it's rather about the combination of tool and mindset. And so this is also what I experienced over the last couple of years, and I'm now 10 years with the Otto Group. That the level of helping each other simply increased.
So on the beginning, you got the board on your side and they said, okay, we want to really generate trust and break up the silos. And then you introduced the tools, or you said, okay, and let's do this. Let's use a good network for that. But how did you make it that the people really use it and go this way? Like if you used to that, you always ask the boss if you can ask with the other, and they should ask the other boss and then go this way. Or if you have a new group where you talk about like being a father, like how did you help them to the next step and go the risk and do something else, even if they did it years
First
before.
First of all, it was just the other way around. It was not like the master plan guy saying we need networks, but it was like we established something and figured out the network is the only thing which survived. So we made just to make it clear. So it was not like this genius saying we need networks, but rather we made 10 approaches and networks survived. So and this is the first thing. The second thing was this is something which really mentally I changed at the very beginning. The moment we started, we had like 5% of the people in the Otto Group said, wow, we need to do something. I want to be part of this change thing, and so on and so on. 80% was saying, I guess we need something, but I'm not believing that you're going to make it. So they'd be more skeptic. And the rest, 15%, were very like annoying and complaining, said if you start something like this, we might have some problem, blah 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 blah. Okay. And the first thing I did was like trying to convert the 80% to the 5% guys by making some chaka speeches and saying now it's our chance, revolution, blah blah blah, and it did not work. Okay. And this was really, really frustrating because I said everything you talked about, everything which you complained about, you can change now. Because the shareholders and the board members are with us. And they said, but I don't think something's going to change. I don't trust them. And this was, it took me so much energy. And after 3 months doing this kind of speeches and doing this kind of stuff, I really sat down, and this was something which I'm very aware of. And I said, I have to change my approach because it's not working. And what I did was, which might be very trivial to all the people who are listening, but for me it was like, one of the aha moments. For me it was like, okay, I'm doing something different. I'm going to the 5% who are willing, and we simply do things. And this is what we did. I talked to the 5% people, and we just checked how much they can change, because it's always a difference if you're like working. If you're the CEO of the group, you can do make better changes or bigger changes in comparison if you're like running the canteen. But you can also, if you run the canteen, do something. And this is what we did. So we created new realities. We went to the people and said, what do we need to change in your local day-to-day work? And this is what we did in the teams, in the smallest teams, which are willing to change something. And so they changed stuff, and by changing this stuff and rising the social norm or the social standards or the cultural standards, however you might call it, people got attracted because they said, interesting, it's working. They changed something, the results getting better, and so on and so on and so on. And so it became, I can't explain it. Over time, it grew so much that people are asking us, and not we had to ask the people. It was some kind of tipping point. And one more sentence on this one, because what I always like kind of had been afraid of was the rate of persons I need to make a difference. And I always said, okay, I need 40 to 50% that someone really see or feels a change. Yeah. And it's rather less. My experience so far is you need 10 to 15 people who are really pushing some kind of transformational mindset issues and really do all the negotiation stuff. And they are setting the social norm. And the next 60% are looking to these 10 to 15 and try to adopt the patterns they are using, the behavior they are using. So you have more than 70% who are just doing something because people are agreed on how to behave. And then the last 30% are very visible. You can see who's not behaving in a way that now, which is now the social standard, and then you can tackle the last 30. And this is what I experienced so far. Some are afraid of changes, some have some kind of reason, some don't want, and so on and so on and so on. But this is something which for me was also kind of at least new to me. So I discovered simply focus on the ones who are willing to do so. Having also said already that you need the support of the highest bosses, which was fast given. Otherwise, you might have this issue that you have like this glass door stuff. So you're running against something without knowing. But for us, we had the support and the commitment of the board members and the family, so we could do things. And by doing this, attracting people, and you don't need to attract as much as you might thought of.
And so you focused on the 5% which are really willing to do a change, and probably they run also against a huge amount of issues, because it's naturally that you work with a lot of people which are not on your side. So you probably help them handling most problems. So with like, how many people are in your team?
Actually, it's very small, to be honest. We are in total 10 people. Yeah.
10 people. And how many people have been the 5% in the Otto Group, kind of?
At the beginning?
Yeah.
At the very beginning, as we started to discuss all these kind of issues, first within the Otto Group holding, I would say 30 to 40 maybe.
So and you were probably so it was still quite possible to help them to solve the problems they have in front of them, because probably they come back to you and say, I tried that and that, but my boss said no.
This is actually the interesting piece. So we always tried, and this is also what we do now at the moment. We have lots of persons who are kind of complaining about something, and we have to always figure out what's the reason. There might be a bad boss, so he has to talk with his boss. It's not my issue, to be honest. Or you can go to workers' counselors, because we have this kind of institution in the Otto Group, and we are very working good together, a very great relationship. Or you can go also to the member of the boards and complain. So it's also not my issue. Everything I'm looking at is, is there a problem in terms of like that the Otto Group operating system is hindering you doing something? And if I and my team or we as a group figure out that there are these kind of issues, then we would go to the board and would say, we have to change this kind of aspect in our operating system, because this is the only moment it scales. Otherwise, it's not scaling. We don't have hundreds of thousands of consultants. It's like just the 10 of us. And if we want to scale, we have to reframe or reset the operating system. Otherwise, it's not going to scale. And so we always try to figure out what is really a case in terms of like paying on the systematic approach, or is it some individual issue which you also need to clarify, but I'm not the guy who's doing this,
Okay, so the settings of the operational framework was more like you want to accomplish this core values as a whole Otto Group. You found the 5% which want to live up these values, and then you just check that like the system is there that helps them to solve the problems, like you said, the council, for example. And then you just let it run and cheer them on and check if the KPIs like the hypothesis come true, and if it worked out like you thought.
Yeah, it's more like we need some kind of cases to having at least the chance to observe also patterns. If we see a pattern in terms of like, it's always when, I don't know, let's talk about budgets maybe.
Yeah.
And there are 10 people complaining about the budget process because it's not working, or I have no idea. And we see, it's true. It's not about the person because the person is not able to do so, but it's like a systematic thing which is written down in our operating system. Then I would go and fight for this, because if I'm changing this kind of budget, how budgets are allocated, it scales for the whole Otto Group. And it does not scale for 10 persons, but for everybody. And it also narrows down to behaviors. So who's going to become the boss? Very simple thing. Is it the one who performs best, or is it the one who delivers most on culture, or is it a mixture of both? And these kinds of discussions are the ones we are talking, and also like enable. Don't forget about the enablement part of my team's job. It's also about to enable people to speak up and go to the boss and say, I don't like how you behave because it hinders me in performing my task. Which is also an issue. It's not easy to do so, and you have to be brave, and also the boss has to be brave to take it. It's not easy. It's
correct.
If you go to the board members, they had been confronted 5 years ago with so much shit, and I really put it that easy and that simple. And it would have been very easy for them to say, due to our power, we say, very interesting, but we don't give a fuck. So, but they really got on the stuff and said, we as persons, and I as a person, going to overthink and reflect on my behavior and to reflect on my personal behavioral patterns to create a better atmosphere or better climate or better culture.
Yeah. What did you use to measure your hypotheses? Because I can imagine it's like, because if you said you're a more strategic perspective, how did you measure your success?
Actually, this is also like a question put on me, like the moment we talked about culture and the board. Is also like 5 years ago, our former CEO, Otto Group, which I very like him very much, asked me, but these times, he was also by calling us by the second name. So he said, Mr. Krüger, but in 2 years we have to draw the line. You have to tell me what was in this kind of approach. And since then, it's always my kind of zombie. Everybody's talking about measurement. First of all, we measure quite a lot on the company level. So we have all the normal HR KPIs, like how the sick rate and filtration and blah, blah, blah stuff. Yeah. We also run this normal surveys, like how do people feel? Yeah. And in these kind of surveys, all kind of Kulturwandel questions also are kind of integrated. So it's not about only how do you feel, but also like, does your boss allow you to work from home? Or I don't know, does your boss enable you, blah, blah, blah. And so we measure kind of lots of stuff on the company level. The board asked for an overarching KPI set for measuring everything for the whole Otto Group. And this is something which I declined, so to say, because or which I fought on, because I don't think it's necessary. First of all, it's very complicated for us because we have more than 100 companies, and so every question I take, I have to go to the workers' council and have to really get my check mark, and this is like would take years to get all the questionnaire simply through this process. Second, you need to know what are you measuring against, so you have to define some kind of target picture, so to say, which is not that simple in terms of culture, because then you come up with trust, for example, but trust does not mean the same for what I just explained. So the third thing was the one really big issue for the board members was to establish trust. You're not simply establishing trust by introducing a controlling tool, because what you're doing is controlling people's stuff. And if you have a red flashlight on the report saying, I don't know, your company is not performing on culture, the board would go to you, hit on your head and say, perform now. So it's not establishing any kind of trust, And so this is what had been all the reasons why we declined to do so. But as I'm a strategic consultant, had been close to the board, I know what the requirements are. They don't want to measure. They want to know how people feel in this kind of organizations, and so we made something different. We asked the people. We asked the Otto Group, what does a board member need to ask you if he would call you by chance? What are the 5 questions he has to ask you that he knows where your company stands in terms of culture? And they gave us brilliant answers. And
what
so we wrote them down.
What were the 5 questions?
First of all was do you have established structures like a local team and so on and so on? So simply budget, allocation, blah, blah, blah. Some around this. Then how does your local CEOs behave? Do you feel that they really are into this thing? Is it not like they are doing something, but do you really feel that they are doing something? And what has changed in your local daily work? And so there's 5 questions around these things. And so we said the board members now have the local KPIs from the local HR departments as one part, so to say. They can ask anybody in the organization they want to, because they are enabled with this questionnaire with 5 questions. They can ask us, as we work as kind of cultural coaches for the company, and they can ask the view of the local board members. And so they have at least 4 or 5 touch points to see how they perform on culture. So you don't need to measure anything, because it's simply tries to objectify or make something more look more scientific, but in the end it's not about being correct. It's rather about
how
people
they feel. Yeah, how they feel.
And
so was it more a yes and no question, or did you ask more on a scale?
No,
or
open
was it
ones.
just
Open ones. Open ones.
Oh,
really,
okay.
in the terms of like, do you believe your local board members that they are really into the Kulturbundle, and what makes you think like they are or they are not? And then people could ask something.
Yeah.
And
how did you create results out of that? Like, because open text questions are really like it's hard to create something out of it and like to get out what's in there in common phase.
But let's go one step back. The board members wanted to know where, in terms of culture, where is what's the level of cultural ripeness, so to say, from any company. And so you need to talk to the people. It's not, you cannot narrow it down to any scientific issue, and there are like also contradictional views on this. So you can simply not try by implementing some scientific issues to solve it. And I know if someone is listening, I know after each and every podcast, when I'm telling these kind of issues, or also in interviews, I get, I don't know, 10 consultants write me, but I find the solutions. You need to talk to me. It might be the case, but so far for us, it's the best and easiest and the cheapest way to really get a view on a company. Simply talk to the people. I don't know, make a call 5 people randomly, ask the CEO, the local CEO, ask us, ask the local team who's responsible for transformation, and you really at least get 80% of everything. What are the issues? What need to be solved? What is already reached, and so on and so on. It's not that it's that kind of rocket science.
And at the end, it's about that the people feel good, because if they feel good, then you have most of the empowerment in place. And if they don't feel good, it's all about that they also tell you and think about what's the problem and what we can do better. And that's not only you're responsible; it's responsible from everyone. Like it's not like Toby will solve it.
Actually, there's also one issue, but it's not about feeling in terms of like, how do I feel, but what do I need? Is everything provided for me what I need to perform best in terms of culture? So it's more about feeling, I would say, to make it more clear. Because in the end, you might feel not good, but the company provided everything also in terms of culture to perform, but you don't feel good because, I don't know, you don't like your table neighbor or whatsoever, and then you have a it's a different level of issue you need to clarify,
Yeah, but how I understood in your world, you would expect that you go over to the table neighbor and talk with him and figure out the problem. And if you can't solve it, then you ask your boss if you can have a different table. Like at least that would be the empowerment I would see it. And sure. That's probably then what you kind of expect. So my second last question is, what are your favorite books?
Wow, a good one. I'm totally into books, so I'm reading like hell, at least if my kids allow me to do so. Also, my family life not that easy to include, to be honest. What I really, really like is William Boyd.
Okay.
Also, T.C. Boyle is someone I just discovered over the last years. My personal favorite book for a long time had been Baudolino from Umberto Eco, and I'm also was very into Donna Tartt, and she just wrote 3 books, but all 3 of them are very, very good. And the last ones I read are really. I'm now reading the last one, all the thrillers from Nesbo.
Okay.
So I'm now reading the last one, and then this is my Corona experience. Yeah, to be honest, I started because my wife wanted to throw them away because we need the space. And
clean up.
I said no, I'm gonna read them, and she said, but it's like, I don't know, 13 books or something. And so I said I took on the challenge, and I'm now nearly finished.
Cool. That's probably then also my next question. So how do you handle work-life balance? You already said it's kind of a challenge. So what what are your ideas to handle that?
I guess we had two answers. The first one would be before Corona and now within Corona. It changed, at least, to be honest. Actually, as I'm socialized rather in the strategic field, so I always say I don't care about, this is also what I'm telling all the time my team, I don't care where they are and when they are working, but they have to fulfill the task they promised to do so. So in the end, my team and I going to grant something to the company, and I'm very into delivering these things which we promised. And so I would say before Corona, it was not that flexible like it is today. So today, due to this mobile stuff and the other challenges, so to say, it's more flexible, at least for me. So I'm working more at the weekends, and I'm also working more at night. But I do not expect my team to answer, for example. This is what I said in terms of like to negotiate stuff. I said to my team, don't feel forced to do anything, and please let me know if you feel forced that I'm going to post something to you. But I always more looking that it's out of my head instead of putting pressure to you. And so it was rather more, I would say, stable before Corona, and it was always not that easy to handle all this kind of stuff like it is for everybody. And I'm father of 3 little kids. My wife is also working, so we try to navigate through our day, I would call, and now it's become a bit better in terms of being more flexible. But it still is a challenge. And to be honest, I had so many calls with my kids jumping around my screen, and but I don't want to feel bad about my family, because this is like it is, and everybody has the chance to see. And this is also what I really like at the moment, because for me, I have the chance to create some kind of new nearness or creating a lose of distance, I would call, because I can see all the different real life situations of not even my team members, but also from colleagues I would never have thought of. I can see the kids, I can see the families, we can talk about different things, and this is something which will last also beyond Corona, I'm quite sure, because you're going to remember these kind of impressions, and everybody in the end is simply a human being, and does not have to be ashamed of the situation like it is at the moment.
Correct.
So,
especially if everyone agrees that family has a huge priority, so that wouldn't make sense to hide it.
Yeah, but to be honest, this is something talking to my friends and people who are in my situation, because we have the same age and also some family structures which are comparable to ours. There are a lot of companies who don't want that the kids are running through the screen, or the friend of mine is always locking up in his room, because the kids have not to annoy him. And this is something which at least also seems to be reality for lots of people,
Yeah, it's a good chance to do a culture change, I would say then.
Yeah, and this is also that people might simply not like to work in companies who behave like this,
Exactly. My last question is, if you could go back in time to your 18-year-old self and give him advice, what would you tell yourself?
I would call, to be honest, nothing, because I think I am who I am because I made the experience I made. And it was not everything was good. To be honest, in my life, it was like more zigzag.
Yeah.
And it was not like, also not that straight, but it might look like it wasn't, trust me. But I wouldn't, I'm not sad of having made any bad experience in my life, because this is what it made who I am now, And so I wouldn't give any advice beside. I would rather call, how would I call it? How would I phrase it? Proud is too much. I would not say, hey, you're a good guy and proud, but I would rather go and try to let myself find my own way,
So would you also say the same to your kids when they're 18?
Hopefully, I'm not quite sure because it's very hard for me to think about how I might be in 10 or 12 years. So I've no, it's not. What I would wish my kids is rather that they are happy in what they are doing. This is something what I really mean. It's not like saying something blah blah, but this is what I really really mean by heart. And if they find their profession and doing something which is far off my own imagination, and they are happy by doing so, it would be great. So I think this is my only wish I have for my kids, that they become happy. This is everything I try to do, and for sure they need to make their own also mistakes and make their own decisions, and some of them I'm quite sure I will not like. But this is part of life and part of the game, so to say. And so I try to be the most lovable dad who I can be.
That's really nice last words. So, Tobias, thank you very much to have been part of the podcast.
I have to thank you. Thank you very much.
And see you next time, guys.